welcome to the Married Therapists.
A relationship podcast.
I'm Luis.
And I'm Amber.
Thanks for joining. We are so excited to be starting this journey together. So I guess first question we'll answer is, why are we making another podcast?
Yes, there's a million and one podcasts out there. Everybody and their mama has one. So why us? Why you should listen? All the things. Well, we wanted to do a relationship podcast because we love promoting healthy relationships. A lot of the times we're looking on social media, we're talking to people, we're hearing about red flags and how it's all this drama and, you know, all the shenanigans that happen in relationships. And I feel like not very often do you see people talk about a healthy relationship and then exactly what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's personal. We both were in abusive marriages that were absolutely horrible and took a lot out of us. Thankfully, we got out of that, did a lot of healing, and that led us to one another. And yes, we're therapists and we have, all these clinical skills, but we're real people. And
Yeah.
so our relationship is thriving only because we're very intentional about doing certain things. I always say with my therapy clients and with friends, a relationship is a part-time job.
Yeah.
So we've got to
Really.
clock in, we've got to clock out, we've got our responsibilities. Like we have to show up and do the work. But it is possible. And so we are going to talk about our abusive marriage, laying the foundation of where we came from. But we're really just going to focus on, again, the practical things that we're doing, such as communication skills, working on trust, dealing with like emotional dysregulation. We're hoping that just through our vulnerability and transparency, that it can strengthen your current relationship, or if you're single, it can just give you some nuggets that you can file back and bring out when you're able to meet your person.
And so along with that, we love Love is Blind and shows like that. And so we'll probably get into some recap and kind of coming from a clinical perspective of what we're seeing in those shows, because there's a lot. And so,
Yes.
so we'll definitely get into that. And like you said, we will get into our relationships in future episodes. But I think for today, really letting you guys get a peek into who we are as people and how we met and all of that, I think would be good. And so I guess where did we start? So we met on Hinge.
Yeah.
We, we're both therapists and we were both just on the apps like everyone and their mama was. Maybe not their mama. Well, some people's mamas are on the apps, but
Yeah. Hey,
hey,
online dating is for everybody.
yes, it is. Yeah. So we met on Hinge, and I remember when I was on the app, I saw her, and she was listed as AJ on the app, which is very funny because she does not give AJ energy.
Well, for some clarification, so my name's Amber and I've always gone by Amber. I've never had a nickname officially growing up, but you just never know who's online. And I watch a lot of true crime documentaries and I'm just a scaredy cat. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and have an alias. And so I didn't want it to be something crazy like Marie, right? It's like, who in the world is Marie? And so I just was like AJ. But I personally, no shade to any AJs, but for me, I just don't really connect with that. And so I forgot that I put that on the app. So when he responded, he was like, "Hey, AJ," I was like, "Wait, oh, that's me."
Like, oh, you got the wrong person. Nope, he does not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw her profile. She was beautiful as she still is. And
Thank you.
yeah. And so I was just like, okay, I need to see what this girl is all about. And as I read more into her, I was just like, okay, she's a therapist also. She and I share the same faith. We are aligned politically, which doesn't happen very often. Where both things are aligned.
We are liberal.
Yeah, we're very liberal. So I saw all of these things, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna message her. I think I messaged you first. Just like,
Yeah.
hey Amber, wanted to reach out to her
Hey,
profile.
AJ.
Yeah, AJ. I think I might have pulled some from her profile, and then she ghosted me for a week, so I did not hear back from her, which is the nature of dating apps, right? And so didn't hear back from her for like a week.
Well, to clarify, I left you on red.
Yes.
Ghosted is different.
Oh yeah, didn't ghost me. Yeah, so she she left
I
me
was
on
like,
red.
let the record reflect.
So she didn't ghost me, but she did leave me on red. And so I was just like, okay, well, on to the next, I guess. And like a week later, I was out Ubering. And at the time, I was already working as a therapist, but I had nothing else to do on the weekend. So I was like, might as well make some money. And so I was doing that on a Saturday night and I stopped to get gas. and I saw that she had messaged me. I was like, "Oh, AJ messaged me back. Awesome." And so I messaged her right back, and we just had this conversation, and there was a Whataburger right across the street, and I was like, "Let me just finish this conversation over there." And so I did that, and at the time, I think that's when Hinge first started putting voice memos
Mhm.
in the app, and I'm not one for voice memos. Well, I wasn't one for voice memos, and so I thought it was just very weird to, like
It's giving a boomer energy.
no, really, and so she was all about it, like, oh my gosh. So she was all about it. She was sending the voice memos, and I was just texting back. Just because I felt weird and awkward, like, talking into my phone, because 'cause I'm like, "This is a machine, why am I talking into it?" Even though I was in my car by myself, but anyway, I started doing that, and I was like, "Okay, I can get behind this." You can get a lot more information, not just verbally, but also with the inflections, 'cause, communication really is, I think the stat is, like, 70% nonverbal, and so it's not even about what you say, it's how you say it, body language, tone, all that stuff. So anyway, you get a lot more information just from hearing the voice memos, and so we did that for, like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 hours
Yeah,
that night, and the vibes were just vibing,
yeah,
and then we both had to go to church the next morning, so we're like, "Let's put a pin in it and, reconvene tomorrow," so we did that, and, yeah, we really just picked back up the next day, and we're talking on the phone. We talked on the phone for, like, 4 or 5 hours that next
yeah.
day. Yeah, and this was this Sunday, and then Amber, she just, like, jumped right in. She's very much a go-getter. She's like, I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it." And so, like, Miss Ariana Grande says. So, anyway.
Yeah, but going back a little bit, so to clarify, the, leaving on red for a
Oh,
week
yeah, yeah, yeah.
was not intentional. The only reason why I didn't respond immediately was because I was talking to someone else, and I don't know about you guys, but when I was on the apps, I just could not talk to multiple people at the same time. That is having, like, multiple jobs. I was only trying to focus on my one little dating job. And so, yeah, I was talking to someone else, just trying to see that through. That whole little thing was about a month. But the night that him and I did connect on Hinge was a night that I was supposed to go on a date with that guy. He stood me up on the date. I was so upset. I remember being in the parking lot, calling my best friend, and just crying, but not really because
Yeah.
I was devastated or anything. It's like angry tears, it's just like, "Oh my gosh," because there had been a lot of other issues, so this was the final straw. So I'm on the phone with my friend, just telling her everything, and then I'm driving home, and my friend, who's amazing, said, "You know what? Sometimes the best thing that you can do in situations like this is to get back in the game, like anybody in your DMs." And I was like, "Let me check." So I'm laying on my bed and I'm checking and I'm like, "Ooh, there's the therapist." And I did see his profile previously, but it just was, I think I liked your profile, but nothing else. So even though I was talking to the other person, I was back on the apps, but I just committed to not officially talking to someone.
Yeah, so, like, swiping, but not, like, engaging quite yet.
Right.
Yep.
So then I said, "Oh, there's the therapist." And I saw his message, and that's when I started just going back and forth with the ways, and that's what lasted about 3 hours, and then
Yeah.
we had to go. But, yeah, so was not a ghosting situation. I was
No, it
like,
wasn't. But, I mean, yeah, I didn't know any of that, right? So all I know is my perspective, and so it's like I messaged, and I didn't hear anything for a week, so I'm like, "Okay, that's over and done with," but she's on her own journey, and so I'm glad she messaged back, and then we go from there. And so, going back to that Sunday, the next day, we're on the phone, and Amber is just like, "When do you wanna meet?" I was like, and I was gonna ask her, but she beat me to it.
that's like the story of our life
No, I know,
is
it's
me just being like, it's like, "Okay, hold on.
yeah.
Give me a second."
No, really.
Your girl's working on the patience.
Yeah, no. So we agreed to meet the next day on Monday, which was the 4th of July, which was extremely fitting because there were definitely some fireworks going for both of us. And then actually on our date we saw literal fireworks, which was cool.
Mhm.
Um so we met up at this Indian restaurant, Tarka, which is great here in
Shout out
Tucson.
to Tarka.
Yeah. You got this relationship started on a good note.
Yes.
And so did that, and then we went and got froyo afterwards, and that's where we saw the fireworks and all that. And I just remember, like, it was such a great date. It was like 6 hours long, and we were just
Like,
talking.
literally, it was 6 whole hours,
Yeah,
but it flew by, it was glorious, and I remember wanting it to be longer, but then just being like, "Okay,
we both gotta work tomorrow.
yeah, adulting."
Yeah. So, yeah, we were just kinda going deep, obviously, because 'cause we're both therapists, we love going deep, and we're never really with anybody who appreciated that, really, and so the fact that we both were able to go there, was really nice, and so, yeah, we were, like, sharing each other's Facebook pictures from college and things like that, and just kind of talking about all the things.
Nothing was off limits.
Yeah, and it was so nice to be that open and that free, and this is something that I remember distinctly from that time at the froyo place. I remember she was just sitting there, we were talking, and she put her hair up, and for some reason, that act of just, like, being comfortable and putting your hair up and just, like, being in her skin was, like, really attractive to me, and it literally took my breath away. Like
When you told me that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, the biggest compliment." And I think what's so thank you again for
Yeah.
saying that. I think what's just so interesting is that the act of putting my hair up was something that I was self-conscious about. Which looking back now, I'm like, "What? This is normal. It was a hot day. We're in South Texas." So,
San Antonio in July is not fun.
yeah, it's literally an inferno. But several things. One, my hair was a lot longer and I had always just worn it down. So wearing it up was just a different style, and I'm just the type where I would wanna look in a mirror to make sure that everything's was good. Because sometimes with locks, it could just be sticking out, and I'm on a first date, so I wanna make sure that I'm not looking crazy, and so it was that, and then, I think maybe I didn't shave or something, so I was, like, not trying to extend my arms too much, like, I had a regular
Yeah.
shirt on, I didn't have a sleeveless top, but, you could still see. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just remember second guessing it and being a little bit hesitant, and then finally I'm like, "Girl, it is hot, your locks are creating extra heat."
It's like a blanket on your neck.
Yeah, so give your neck a break. So,
Yeah.
I'm sharing this because, again, it's just interesting. It's taking his breath away. He loves it. He's just floored, and I'm over here like, "Wah!" So, just friendly reminder, be yourself.
Yeah.
You just never know how it's gonna land with someone.
Yeah. And so we ended that date, and I remember even in that first date, I wanted to kiss her, but I didn't want to be like too forward, and so I didn't. And so we just hugged and went on. And then we met the next day for Taco Tuesday because it's San Antonio, and why would you not do that?
Yeah.
And got margaritas at this place called Sangria on the Berg. It has closed since, but it was awesome, and we were there, we're just talking and going deep again, and we were crying.
Yeah.
Again, this is our second date. We are
Really?
just tearing up at the table, and I'm sure people were
Yes.
looking at us, were like, "What is going on with these 2?" Yeah, just talking about our trauma and our past and things like that, and I remembered there was one point when I got up to use the restroom, and when I came back, I looked out, and we were the only ones in the restaurant at that point.
Yeah.
Like, chairs were up.
Yeah, just like in the movies, like, we shut it down.
Yeah, and I can tell, like, the waiters were just, like, moving stuff around and cleaning up. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're closed right now. We need to, like, get up outta here." And, shout out to all the workers there. Thank you for
Yeah.
recognizing that we were in our fields, right? Not, like, making us leave.
Yeah.
But, we did recognize that, like, we don't wanna keep them late, and so we got our check and we left, and we continued the conversation in the parking lot. And, yeah, at the end of that date, I wanted to kiss her again, but I was like, "Ah, it's a second date. I don't know." And so I did the forehead kiss.
Which I love. It was so sweet. How often do you get that? I know for me, it hasn't been a normal thing. Of course, if we had to take our pick, right, a lot of us would prefer a mouth kiss, but just the fact that it was our second date and
Yeah.
it was just so incredibly perfectly timed. We had just finished crying and talking about heavy things, so it just was a beautiful way to end it. And then after that date, we went home and we were sending voice memos again, and he told me, "I wanted to kiss you," and I was like, "Ooh." So I said, "Okay, I am also down for that, so just know whenever you do it, I am ready to receive it." He's like, "Okay, noted."
And so, yeah, so I was like, "Okay, cool." And so we didn't meet on Wednesday. I think she had something going on that day.
Yeah,
But the next we met on Thursday, and I met her twin sister. She's a twin,
yep.
and one of her best
Shout out to you,
friends.
twin, love you.
And I also met one of her best friends at an area here in San Antonio called the Pearl. And it was hot. It was summer. There was like an airstream, and there's like a big grassy area there. Playing music. It was just vibes on. It
Everybody
was great.
dancing, so it was kinda like a little summer party.
Yeah, like a
Um,
block party.
yeah, and all ages, there were dogs, little babies. I just remember dancing. My sister and I love all things Selena, so I just remember doing, like, little cumbia,
Yeah.
like, in the front and just laughing and having such a great time.
Yeah, and I remember the more people I met from her life, the more I loved her. And at this point, I could already tell that I was falling in love with her. Again, this is like the 3rd time I'm seeing her, and we were, at this time on voice memos and, like, on the phone, we were saying, "I like you a lot,"
Yeah.
which is like
It was like
we knew what we were saying without actually saying it.
yeah, it was like, "I like you a lot." All dramatic.
So silly. Anyway, but yeah, the more I got to know the people in her life and in her circle, the more I got to know her, and there were no red flags. It was all green flags all day. And I was
Mm.
just like, yes, this is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah. And so I met with them. They were great. And, we walked around for a little bit. I think they recognized, like, okay,
Yeah.
they are like in their fields. Let us just get out of this situation.
Pretty sure I had told them that
Okay.
we're probably gonna kiss tonight, and so they're girls, so they're like, "Okay, bye."
Yeah.
They left, and then we stuck around the Pearl a little bit longer just walking around, and then both of us were like, "Okay, who are we getting?" So we went to the parking garage, and, that's where we had our first kiss, and it was absolutely magical. Uh This one is just great, we'll say that. But what was really funny about that whole thing was that there was a little security guard who was there on a bike patrolling the area,
Yeah.
and tell me why he was lingering, like, "Okay, hold on, what's going on?" Which same, like, I'm very nosy, so definitely would have done the same thing, but we didn't just kiss, it was a full makeout, so we were there for a minute, and homeboy just kept kind of slowly
Circling the area.
circling the area. But yeah, that was really special.
Yeah.
So that was day 4 or the 4th date. Because Wednesday we didn't meet face to face because I had
Yeah.
an obligation, but we did talk on the phone for 3 hours, so I still consider that a
Yeah.
date. So then this brings us to day 5,
Yeah,
which is
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah, and I remember we were gonna go to this cool little bar called The Modernist. We went out to eat first at
Mhm.
Farm Table,
Yeah.
like this vegan place, and then we went to Modernist after that. And I remember on the way to The Modernist, I remember thinking, we've gone deep a lot over these last few days, but we haven't really gone over those surface level questions like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite movie, things like that, because we don't really care about those types of questions, but
Yeah.
I think they are good to know. And so on the way to the bar, I was just asking like, "What is your favorite movie?" And that's when she told me it was Selena
Yeah.
and and things like that. And so that was kind of cool just to kind of go in reverse.
Yeah,
Um,
it felt really nice for him to ask me that because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, I'm cool now to be able to answer that." I know a lot of people are the opposite, where they wanna get into the shallow water and then go deep, but I think just because 1, we're therapists, and 2, we're mid-30s, and 3, we had been in abusive relationships, and so we were just like, "Let's just jump in the deep
yeah.
end and see what happens, and then we'll work our way to this shallow end."
Yeah. And so then we got to the Modernist, and it's a cool little 60s lounge vibe. And
It
it's a little house near downtown, and you wouldn't know that it was a bar because there's really no signage. I think they in the last couple of years put the little mailbox outside with the name of it on it, but besides that, there's no signage. So you would never really know that it was a bar unless you
it
actually knew about it.
yeah, kind of speakeasy-ish.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're there on the couch, just hanging out. All the vibes are vibing, and
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. I'll let her finish that part.
so again, we had been saying, "I like you,"
Yeah,
a lot the whole week, and I did feel like I loved him, and I wanted to tell him. That being said, like a lot of us women, we're not trying to be the first ones. It's this whole
yeah,
social construct of the guy has to be first, which now I do not subscribe to. But at the time, I just wanted him to say it first because it was inevitable. Like, we literally were vibing so strong. It was this elephant in the room, and so I was hemming and hawing about it, and then I just was like, "Girl, forget all of that, just be real." And
Yeah.
so I decided to say it, but I still was kind of stuttering a little bit and really slow. And then I finally said, "I love you." And Louise had a response that I didn't love, but it made sense for you to say at the time.
Yeah, so, she was like, I love you," and I was like, "Well, you're in luck because the feeling is mutual," which, I mean, I'm just like, "Why was that what I said?" I did say I love you too, right afterwards, yeah, and she's like, "Okay," but, yeah, we broke that barrier, and we're just like, "Wow, this is awesome," like, it's day 5 of
Yeah.
knowing each other, and we are
In
totally in love,
love.
and a lot of people would think that that's very quick, which it is in a lot of ways, but when you think about it, a lot of people have like 1 date a week or 2 dates a week, and they're like an hour, 2 hours, or something like that. And so it does take some time to like, get there and maybe not going super deep at the beginning. But I think because we went so deep so quickly
Mhm.
and we spent so many hours just talking to each other, getting to know each other, and all of that, I think it really did have time to really build. And we got all the information we needed. And everything that we heard was, like, all green flags, and so we're just
Yeah.
like,
It just
yeah,
accelerated our process.
yeah, for sure, and so, even though on paper it was fast, I think to us it felt very natural. It felt like, "Okay, this makes sense for us right now."
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we're of the belief that love is a choice.
yeah,
Yes, there definitely was a strong feeling. That being said, we were choosing to lean into this thing called love. There's always a risk that it's not gonna work out, but it's a risk that we were willing to take. Again, we had both been in abusive marriages and just other situations in the past that were obviously not love, and this was the exact opposite. And we both had been craving it, and I just think it was just kind of buzzing from within us, like, "Yes,
yeah,
this is the thing that I've always wanted." So, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. And so, yeah, that was a really pivotal moment, and the rest is history. Really,
yeah,
after that, everything just fell into place,
yeah,
and we, winded up dating for a little shy of 7 months
mhm,
when we got engaged, and we had talked about the time frame, and then, we had an 8-month engagement. So from meeting to marriage was about 15 months, and that's what worked for us. When it comes to timelines, everybody's different, you
yeah,
know? So we would never tell anyone what you have to do in order to feel ready to make that commitment. But yeah, for us, it just made sense. We did lots of check-ins with each other along the
yeah.
way just to make sure that we both were on the same page.
Yeah, and, along with those check-ins, we have our friends that we were kinda checking in with, and we have our individual therapists. So we had a lot of people speaking into our life, and so it wasn't just us making the decisions on our own, and so everyone that we talked to was, like, kinda green flags. They were all the way.
For the most part.
For the most part, yeah. My friends were a little bit more reluctant just because my previous marriage was a little bit more recent than Amber's, and so, it was more out of concern for me, because they just didn't want to see me get hurt again, which I love that for them. I love that they had that for me, but it was still frustrating for me a little bit just because I knew that it was different, and
Mhm.
I knew that she was so much different and so much better, and so it was hard because they didn't know her yet, and so they just saw, "You're in another relationship, it's going fast, you need to slow down," and all these things, and so but, again, all of that was coming out of concern, which at the end of the day, I appreciated.
And fortunately, they eventually came around.
They did. They eventually came around. They were groomsmen at my wedding, and so it was great at the end of the day. And my parents, they absolutely loved Amber. My mom lives in Austin, so we visited her. I think after like a week and a half of knowing
Yeah.
each other, we visited my mom. My mom immediately loved her, and I remember when we left, I got back to San Antonio. My mom texted me, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, Amber left me this sweet message." So Amber had like gotten her card, I think,
Yeah.
and wrote her like a note just like showing her appreciation and gratitude for her hospitality and things like that.
Yeah, because we had spent the weekend with them,
Yeah.
and his mom is just amazing. She's such a gem, and I love her so much. And so it was a blank card, and I just said thank you and a couple of other things because I truly appreciate it. Because when I was married before, I had the exact opposite experience with my former in laws. And so it really meant a lot to me that she was the way that she was. And I just wanted
Yeah.
to express that.
Yeah. And I appreciated that so much just because I didn't have that before where they had such a great relationship, and she appreciated the things about my mom that I appreciated, and so that was really, really beautiful for me to witness, and I remember even just talking to her about it and just, like, tearing up just because of how grateful I was that this was such a different
Mm,
situation. Yeah, so I was really thankful for that, and that again, that just kind of made me fall more in love with her. I'm just like I just saw more of her heart and who she is as a person, which is
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you just for being so sweet.
Of course. On that note, as an aside, in the beginning of our relationship,
Yeah,
we would say thank you to each other all the time, which is like
yeah,
very Therapanese.
yeah.
And so it was like a joke, like, how do you know when you're dating a therapist as a therapist? And it was just like, thank you so much for vulnerability. No, thank you so much for holding space. No, thank you so much for trusting me with your story. Thank you so much for your time. So
Yeah,
we
there were
just did that.
so many thank yous, so many like, "Oh my gosh, I appreciate this," and all that. It was very funny.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that was the beginning of a relationship, and yeah, like you said, the rest is history, and it just progressed from there. Obviously not perfect all the time. We definitely had some conversations, we definitely had some triggers we had to work through from our previous marriages.
And we'll be going over
Yeah,
that. I know in the beginning I talked about like communication and
mhm,
emotional dysregulation.
expectations, things
Yeah,
yeah.
managing triggers, that did pop up for
Mhm.
us. We both went through abusive marriages. It wasn't this little light thing. It was pretty severe on both ends, and we weren't left unscathed. You
Yeah,
know, we got hit, and so unfortunately that did pop up because both of us were the first relationship after those marriages.
yeah,
So it's not like we had time in between to figure it out. You can work on yourself individually, but it doesn't compare
yeah,
to being with someone.
yeah,
And so there were things that I would do that would trigger you. Whoa, like literally a flashback kind of
yeah,
situation, and vice versa. And so we definitely want to be as raw as we can just to let you guys know that, again, we're real people
yeah.
and we've gone through some stuff and we have come out on the other side. And we just want to be a resource to anybody.
Yeah, for sure. So, thank you guys for joining. And so, in the next episodes, we will go through our previous marriages and what that looked like, how that affected us, and kinda where we are now. And so, stay tuned for that.
Yes, and it'll be interview style. Of course, we have told each other these stories
Yeah,
countless times. So the questions we're asking aren't questions that we don't know, but it's simply just to make it more casual. And there'll be individual episodes. So I'll get a whole episode talking about my abusive marriage, and then Luis will have an episode talking about his. And then after that, we'll get into very specific things that we've done in our relationship. And then, like you said, some love is blind chat, and then also just hot topics like,
yeah.
can you be friends with the opposite sex when you're in a relationship or in a marriage? Or do we believe once a cheater, always a cheater?
Do we think there is coming back to a relationship after someone cheats? Um,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then like gender norms and how that shows up and things like that. Also, we definitely want to have a segment of Q&A. If you have any kind of relationship dilemma that you want us to talk about, disclaimer, we are therapists, but we're not your therapist.
yeah,
And so if you do write in, yes, it will be anonymous, but also this is just our 2 cents.
yeah,
We don't have a therapeutic relationship with you, meaning we haven't assessed you, we haven't gathered all the data. So basically, what I'm saying is take it with a grain of salt. But if you think it would be helpful, email us would be the best way
yeah.
to do that. Our DMs sometimes get flooded and we miss things, and so our email is semidaysquad@gmail. Semidey is our last name, Semidey squad@gmail. And we'll be more than happy to address that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys joining in, and we'll catch you next episode.
Yep. Cheers.